Mountains wearing morning gray, cup of black between my hands, another Sunday Quindío away. 9 years since I came down here, built a life from the ground up. Found my people, found my home, one story at a time, one cup. So pour it slow, let it breathe a while. The truth don't need to hurry. Every Sunday, mile by mile, we tell it straight. No worry, this is coffee time. We're alive, right here in the hills where the green never dies. Coffee time, watch it thrive. Armenia mornings, we go live. We go live. Pesos up, pesos down. News don't wait for no one. Some weeks heavy, some weeks light. We show up either way, get it done. From the farms up in the hills to the streets down in the town. Every story's got a heartbeat. We don't talk it, we lay it down. Quindío sunrise, mi gente, let's go. Coffee in the cup, but the truth is what we pour. 9 years deep, I ain't leaving, that's a fact. Peso falls, prices climb, but we adapt and adapt back. Every Sunday morning, same time, same place. Camera rolling, real talk, never fake. This ain't no script, this ain't no show for show. This the coffee access, truth, mi gente, here we go. We go live. We go live. Pour it slow, let the morning breathe. Armenia's calling. Coffee time. Live. Morning light through the window pane. Coffee steaming, no rush, no lane. World's been shouting all night long. I pour a cup, let the silence talk. I didn't leave angry, didn't storm the door. I just stepped sideways away from the roar. Pull up a chair, let the clock unwind. This isn't breaking news, it's breaking the grind. They sell fear by the hour, package rage by the pound. Every screen's got an opinion, every voice trying to sound like they know what's coming, like they've cracked the code. But the loudest ones panic when you step off the road. I've seen cycles repeat, watch them rise, watch them fall. Empires shouting forever right before they stall. So I sip and I watch, let the headlines fight. Truth don't need a megaphone, it waits out the night.
They want speed, they want fire, they want sides, they want lines, they want heroes and villains every damn time. But life ain't a headline, ain't red versus blue. It's quiet decisions people never review. Yeah, yeah, they want me loud, want me mad, want me fast, want me swinging at ghosts from the digital past. But I've been here before, seen the scripts get reused. Same panic, new actors, same fear-based news. They don't hate lies, they hate silence. Hate when you pause and apply some guidance. Hate when you notice the patterns align. Hate when you don't need a side to decide. I'm not anti this, I'm not pro that, I'm pro thinking. Imagine that, I don't shout for clicks, I don't bleed for views, I don't rev my brain to the outrage machine, I refuse. I stepped off the treadmill, they called it escape, but it's hard to control someone who won't take the bait. You think freedom's loud? Nah, freedom's calm. It's knowing when to walk while the others all run. I'm not late to the party, I just left it early. Seen how it ends, same mess, same worries. This is coffee time live, where the noise burns out, where we sit with the facts till the truth shows up. No filters, no frenzy, no borrowed rage, just long view thinking in a short fuse age. Let down slouch or from the blind. So take a breath, let the cup cool down. The world will keep spinning without your sound. We'll be right here when the dust don't fly. Coffee on the table, morning in the sky. This is coffee time, live. No need to run. We'll talk again when the day's begun.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel grancolombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live here in Armenia, Quindío, Colombia. And I got a whole bunch of stuff today. Hopefully Mike's going to come in after I do the news. I do have some things to cover first, and then we'll do some headlines. We'll talk a little bit about the exchange rate, and then we'll get right into the topic. And I don't know what you guys think. I mean, I thought it was fascinating. I ran into this and it just blew me away. And it wasn't on Coffee Time. It was in the week. And it was on the Ark, the instructions from the Creator given to a tribe here in Colombia. And it was for the purpose of surviving the flood. And it just blew me away. And I did a video on it. It's about a half an hour long. I tell the story about what that's all about and how I discovered it. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the one who discovered it, but and I had 30 people watch that video, which blew me away. But anyway, if you get a chance, check it out. Today's another, for me, I love history. And for me, it's fascinating. And I talked a little bit about the main topic some years ago after I spent some time in Bucaramanga, because that's the area where this occurred. And what's the title? The title is something about Viking legacy, which is a very real possibility. And I'll explain why when we get to the topic. So anyway, I don't know if maybe you guys don't like history. It's not just history. It's fascinating, unique things here in Colombia that it's almost like nobody knows about this stuff. Anyway, so let me get to the topic. I'm trying to keep an eye out for Mike, if he can log in or not. I'm watching on, let me know when I hit the link. Mike, you might want to try it. You can always back out again and then come back in later. Rumble changed some of the way it does things. And before you could test things before you go online. And now you have to be online for certain things to work, which kind of makes sense the way everybody else does it. And so we want to make sure it works for them. Anyway, go over the chat here. Lauren got any Manizales Barrio recommendations, and I gave a few. Anything on 23 is good. And if you stay on 23, you won't have to climb hills because everything that you want to do and see is on 23 on one end to the other. And it's a good distance. I mean, you got a few miles from one end to the other. But Milan is beautiful. It's got amazing restaurants there. I mean, nice restaurants, beautiful buildings. Milan is stunning. And let's see. B-Nick, how you doing? Chad, how are you? Olga, good morning from Los Angeles. How are you? Bob Sen, good morning. Good morning, all. Quickly, an update on Rumble. I did get monetized for June. It's probably going to be around $200, and I'll receive it in a couple weeks. So that's awesome. However, for July, they've come out with a whole new set of requirements, and I don't think I can achieve it. For example, watch hours. Because I moved to Rumble and a lot of people just didn't want to go to Rumble, it fell off. And it hasn't mattered up to this point, but it will matter now because my watch hours are typically around 250 a month. I think something like that. Wait, let me look here. Yeah, like last month was 259, 260. They just increased and the threshold was 200. So it was no problem. It was never an issue. I never got nailed for that. They just moved it to 500. I mean, what's that, 150% more? I don't think I can hit it. I think I can hit it maybe 3 or 4 months from now, but right now I don't think I can hit it. And that's devastating because if you live here, you know, it's, our finances have been getting worse and worse and worse. So there's that. And then, the chat thing, which I struggle to hit because they have to be unique. And I struggle to hit 20 because I get the same, basically 20 people a month that will put something in chat and only counts one time per month per person. And so I hit it most of the time. I think once I didn't hit it. They just moved that up to 75. So I don't think I'm going to be monetized for a while, but we'll see. Hold out hope. I do need to do more videos during the week if I want to try this. And so if there's time in the week where you might be interested in watching videos, let me know what day and time that might be. And so I shoot for that. Because right now I only get maybe 7, 8 people if I do something during the week while it's live. And then I'll get anywhere from maybe 20 to 50 people after the fact over the next week or two, which is not much. Okay, enough of that. Let me talk about the exchange rate just a little bit. All right, right here is the recent, what's the time frame here? Okay, this is for June. You could say, pew, drop down the toilet. And it's not even reflected on this graph because it happened so fast, but it actually got down to 32.90. But I looked at it, and a few minutes later, I went back and clicked on it again, and it had gone back up. So I don't even think it registered on this graph, but it's really bad. Okay, so what is causing this? It is typically things that happen in the US are more heavily weighted. That's not the case right now. Right now, it's very specifically a few things here in Colombia. The biggest one was after the election, and that's what happened in that graph. When you see the peso, the dollar go down, that means the peso got stronger. What happened as soon as that election was known? A massive amount of money got invested in Colombia because people that know about investing money know that the kind of direction that Colombia is going in will be far less risky. And so a ton of money got invested. That strengthens the peso. Also, they've had unrealistically high interest rates. And that attracts investment also. I mean, if you can get a 10, 11% return on your money, what the hell? That's pretty damn good. And it shouldn't, according to Colombian economics, they think it should be a couple points lower. Except, though, that foreign investment is very attractive. On the other hand, a strong peso hurts Colombia in a lot of ways, particularly when they're trying to export things. They've got a lot of produce, fruits and vegetables that they want to export, and emeralds and all kinds of things that they make money exporting. And so if the peso is strong, that means it's less likely to be purchased by outsiders because maybe they can go over to Ecuador and buy it cheaper. When the peso is weaker, it becomes very attractive for outsiders. And so you have this tug of war between, the investment and the exports. So we'll see how that goes. Now, there are a couple good signs. One, which is not necessarily good for Colombia, but for our situation as expats, right here, this was a headline just came out, but Colombia is set for the world's third largest fiscal deficit. So the new president is going to have this to struggle with, because this last president, the things that he managed to get done caused a real problem with the Colombia has always been known to be fiscally responsible. And some of that went out the window, and it created a big debt that they're going to have to overcome. So we'll see how that goes. But that situation is likely to be beneficial to the dollar side of this. And the other thing is oil prices are coming down. And when it gets to below, I think, $73 a barrel, then that'll strengthen the dollar. It'll weaken the peso. That's kind of the magic line. And so you got some pressure right now to move the dollar back up here in Colombia, but we'll see how it goes. There's always delay by a number of weeks on the oil side of it, so that's probably not something we're likely to see for at least maybe 2 or 3 weeks, if not a little bit more. Okay, that's all I got to say on that. I get asked that a lot. Another question I got asked twice in 1 week, which was really bizarre because I think back, what did I talk about that prompted people to ask two people to ask this question? But I think it's because people recommend certain YouTube channels, and I say, I don't really. Okay. So I got the question, what do you watch? Well, I don't really watch things about Colombia because, I mean, I'm not going to say I know it all because I don't. I'm constantly searching. But when I see the YouTube channels, it's almost always pretty basic stuff, at least if you've lived here for a while. And so I don't really find it interesting. Afro Ahira, she's entertaining, but she doesn't do much anymore. So what do I watch? So this isn't really that important, but I do try to answer if people take the time to write me. Critical Drinker. I don't know if you've heard of any of these guys, but these are like my favorite channels. I don't necessarily religiously watch them, but whenever it pops up, I will watch these people. Critical Drinker, very entertaining. Fat Electrician, love his stories, and it's almost always military, so I relate to a lot of them. Joe Rogan, I don't like the long form because I have other things to do. And I don't put it in the background because I'm concentrating on what I'm doing, so I'm not really hearing it anyway. But I do like it when they chop it up to 10 or 15 minutes of something. So I like that. There's a guy, Guga, who is also sous vide everything. He's got 2 channels. I don't know why. I've just watched him for years. So he's kind of a habit. Love this guy, Asmongold. I don't know if you've ever seen him. I love this guy. I love the take he has on things. He comes across as kind of a live in the basement loser type, but this guy's brilliant. And so I really appreciate him. Finnish Girl Reacts. I've been watching her for the last 6 or 7 months. I find it very enjoyable because she's extremely naive, and so she'll watch these videos and it's like all new to her, and that's entertaining. It's kind of like when you have a kid and they're going through all the things you've been through, but you're seeing it through different eyes. Well, it's kind of like that. Hoovie's Garage, I've watched him for 10, 12 years since he began. Sean's Farm, which was actually Bikes and Beards, a motorcycle thing I've watched. I still do. But he bought what he calls his Sean's Farm. It's pretty hilarious. I love the guy's humor. Stradman, another guy about cars. I've watched him forever. I just find him entertaining. Buffalo Plus, it's all about the Buffalo Bills. And PewDiePie, also watched him for probably 10, 15 years. So that's the stuff I watch. And you can see it's not really about Colombia. Got my tea with honey. Okay, now covered that. And let's see. Covered that. Bear with me here. I'm not seeing Mike. Let me look. Nope. Okay. One thing I want to cover about the new president coming in is just something for you to keep an eye on. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of it. But right after it was announced that he officially was president, he issued an ultimatum. It's an absolute 30-day window for unconditional surrender, and also declaring Petro's Total Peace program dead. Under the Total Peace program, all of these guerrilla groups grew more than double and became very strong financially. So this Total Peace thing really just supported these groups. And so he announced they got 30 days to surrender, lay down their arms, give up. Unconditional. The next day, a FARC group in Cauca, I talk about Cauca, they're explicitly rejecting the Tigers' deadline. They're signaling that the guerrilla factions will fight rather than fold because they had a highway attack. The only thing is, they do that all the time. So it wasn't all that effective. And I did a search to see if this is happening with these groups. And it's actually, they've been pretty quiet. So I don't know. The deadline expires the end of this month. It says a 30-day window closed. Security analysts predict an intense spike in asymmetrical warfare, transit blockades, and urban intimidation tactics leading up to the handover. Historically, probably the case because they do it anyway, at least 3 or 4 times a year, if not more, over any occasion. And so this is certainly an occasion. So I wouldn't be surprised. However, so far, it's been pretty quiet. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. What I do know is, like I said, they're more than double in strength than they were 4 years ago. So it's just going to be that much more difficult. As a matter of fact, in Cauca, 4 years ago, there was under 2,000 guerrillas operating out of there, and nobody has a very good count, but it's estimated tens of thousands. So in that particular area, massive growth. And then August 7th is inauguration day. He takes the oath, and then it's got here in quotes, the explosion begins as the state shifts to Bukele-style mega prisons and intensive military containment. Well, they don't have mega prisons, so I mean that's not going to happen on August 7th. But the crackdown likely will. He's pretty serious about it, and to be honest, that's why he got a lot of the votes that he got, because people in Colombia are just sick and tired of this constantly. Like I said, a bunch of times a year this stuff comes up, and they get stronger and stronger, and nobody wants it except the criminals. So we'll see what happens. Andromeda server, greetings. Only just arrived. Cheers. How you doing? Okay, let's get to the headlines, and then we'll see if Mike's here. If he is, then we'll start have a little conversation with him about Panama. All right, I only have 3 headlines today. Historic toll reduction. Autopista del Cafe tolls will now cost 700 pesos starting July 1st. This is huge. This was costing me, if I left here and drove, when I had the car, when I would drive to PriceSmart, driving up there, it's somewhere around 18,000 pesos for the toll. Coming back, 18,000 pesos for the toll, plus gasoline. So it wasn't a cheap trip. It was a pain in the butt, and it's gone up a lot over the last few years. I've never seen it at 700, and they're trying to work it back to 0, but they did a big cut on this thing, and people have been screaming for it, and they actually did it. So now I don't have a car, and and now it's pretty much gone away. 700 pesos, that's nothing. So William, he goes to PriceSmart at least once a month, so I'm sure he'll appreciate it. This was kind of interesting. Is the specter of blackouts returning? They propose changing the clocks in Colombia. They want to move it ahead an hour, or at least they're talking about it, because everybody's freaking out over the El Nino, and we're not really seeing effects of it. But I've never seen so much pre-planning. I mean, it's crazy how much pre-planning, including right here, and we're the least to be affected by it. So, if they were to do this clock thing, they're saying it would only be for 3 or 4 months, and it would just give more daytime, less use of electricity theoretically. I don't know that that's the case. I mean, right now it's from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, and that's all daytime. So it's dark until 6, and then it's dark after 6. And it's like that every day of the year. So I just don't know how effective that would be. But I don't know, maybe. I just thought I'd throw it out there. And this one just made me smile. It's not much of a headline, but it's the new president. And this made all the headlines. This is a big story here in Colombia, and it's kind of he's very intelligent on how he goes about his marketing. So it says, I grabbed the snake by the head. And he announced that he scares away snakes and challenges. Now, in his yard, he caught this snake. I wasn't sure what it was, so I took the photo and I put it in. I looked for other photos. I put it into AI, and it came back, and it said it's a baby boa constrictor. It's not poisonous. It will bite you, but it's a boa constrictor. So he found a mostly harmless boa constrictor in his yard. But he got pictures of it. He posted it on the internet, and he's basically just using it as a metaphor for cleaning up all the snakes that happen to be in government and in the guerrillas. And is a cute metaphor, I guess. Very interesting. I was just surprised how much that story blew up, because it certainly really wasn't about the snake. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of courage to pick up a baby boa constrictor if you know anything about them. Okay, so that's the last of that. If Mike is here, I'm still not seeing him. Mike, where are you? I'll give him a minute, and then I'll have to move on with the story. Let's see. Chad, I just paid under 150,000 from Medellin to Armenia. Are you saying you drove here and that's what you paid in tolls? When I go to Cali, or when I used to go to Cali now and then, I believe there's 5, maybe 6 toll booths between Armenia and Cali. I think it's 5. And it adds up to 100 and something thousand, yes, toll costs. So, yeah, it's pretty serious. So if they're going to be dropping those back, it's huge. It's a huge thing. The only people that don't pay a toll on that road, outside of government workers or military, are the motorcycles. They have their own little lane, the motorcycle size, and they can bypass it. So motorcycles, free. Everybody else, they pay. And like in the U.S. with tolls, basically a passenger car, that's a minimum charge of whatever it is. And then if you have a truck and then a dual axle truck and things like it, just keeps going up and up. Okay, Mike, I'm not seeing you. I don't know what you're doing. He messaged me earlier. He's not messaging me. He's not here. He's not saying he couldn't get in. I don't know. I guess we have to move on. So, as some of you know, I did a series of videos when I was in Bucaramanga. That was actually when I discovered what I'm going to talk about today. And today, there's a big question about a tribe that used to exist in that Bucaramanga area. Now, this tribe they were called the Guane. And I'm going to show you a map. This is a rather large area, this circle. And you can see on the map, I've got underlined Medellin, Bogota, where we are. So you can see basically where it is. And it's just south of the border from Venezuela. But that entire area, which is a pretty big area, that's where they were. Hold on. You can't get in. Okay, I don't know what's blocking him, but won't be Mike today. Sorry, Mike. We'll work on it. There's two main areas they were, and one of them is this canyon. And this canyon is huge. It's kind of Colombia's Grand Canyon. It's not as big as the Grand Canyon, but it's pretty massive. It's the, what the heck is it? Chica. Oh, somebody help me out. I'm drawing a blank. Well, I'll talk about it in a minute. I'll look at my notes. So there's that canyon. There is I had AI make up a picture of what that tribe would have looked like based on historical records, and basically adobe walls, thatched roof, walls around each area, and terraced into, they like steep parts of the hill, although they were also in some flat areas. So it's just another tribe, right? Well, today we're going to step through a doorway into a part of Santander, which is that department that most people just drive right past without a second thought. Usually when we talk about the Spanish arrival in Colombia, we have a very specific image in our head. You got the bearded conquistador meeting people who looked, spoke, and lived in a way that was entirely other to them. But in 1540, when Martin Galeano led his men into the canyon-carved highlands of Santander, he ran into a group called the Guane, and it absolutely blew away the Spanish chroniclers. Now, if you're aware, the Spanish were meticulous about keeping notes, and we get a lot of accurate historical notes about the Inca, about various tribes that they would deal with, because they were just really good about that. So I was looking at some of these writings, I was actually reading them in translation 4 or 5 years ago when I was in Bucaramanga. And there was a soldier poet called Juan de la Castellanos. And this guy had seen everything. He had encountered dozens of indigenous groups across the Americas. Yet when he describes the Guane, he uses words like gajardia, graceful and valiant. He called them white people with aquiline noses and a clean appearance. These are words that he used, of course, in Spanish. They stood out so much that the Spanish, who weren't exactly known for their nuanced views of indigenous beauty, he repeatedly singled out the Guane women as being exceptionally beautiful. Now, based on a number of detailed descriptions by the Spanish, I had AI put together what would a Guanean woman look like. And so let me show you. Now, this is the description of who and what year and stuff is on the right. Doesn't really matter. I can send this to you if you ever want it. It's in Spanish. And this is what she looks like. She's got blue eyes. She's got light brown hair. She's got very white skin. This is all from the description of the Spanish. Now, you have to wonder why. I mean, I've been in Peru and Ecuador, here in Mexico. I've been all over the place. American Indians in the West, in New York, the Mohawk. I mean, everywhere. And there's a lot of similarity to the indigenous appearance. About the only thing that I ever noticed out of all the indigenous groups that I've run into is, for the most part, in Peru, where you see a lot of Japanese characteristics. And it turns out that there's a reason they have Japanese DNA when DNA came out, and everybody noticed it, but why? And it's because at some point 10,000 years ago or whatever it was, the Japanese got on a boat or a raft or whatever and made their way into Peru. And there's no settlements that anybody knows about, but the DNA exists. So outside of that anomaly, indigenous people really everywhere all over North and South America have a similar appearance. So what was the Spanish? What were they recording? And they didn't even, there was a lot of confusion in some of the writings where they had trouble drawing the right words to describe them. So there's a myth, a story of these invaders that came to Colombia, described basically as Vikings. Except there's nothing beyond that. That there's in oral tradition going back 1,000 years, there's kind of like when they went into Canada. It took a lot of years for that to come out to where, okay, it's no longer a myth. We actually found some evidence. They never found the evidence here, but you have the same kind of story that took place here. So you have to wonder, is it possible or is it likely if those Vikings actually reached the interior? Because that's what they did in Canada. They didn't just settle on the coast. They took rivers inland and then settled inland. So we know for a fact that the Norse expedition reached North America, and that was around year 1000. That's established. The question is, how far south did those adventurous crews travel? Or were there other crews? And if you're a Norse sailor, following a coast is not that hard, but exploring an interior, that's done with rivers. And what do we have here in Colombia in this area? The Magdalena River is Colombia's version of the Mississippi. It's a long, wide river, and it carries you from the Caribbean coast almost to the very feet of the Andes. If a Norse crew entered that river, they would eventually hit the region that became Santander. Now imagine a scenario that we've seen throughout history. It's not necessarily a conquest, it's a settlement. They did that a lot. They would just find a place they liked, they would settle, they would intermingle. And so you get a few dozen Scandinavians arrive, some die off, but some stay. Maybe they marry the local indigenous women. That's a typical story. And within 3 or 4 generations, their descendants are culturally indigenous, but genetically they're mixed. Your electric coffee sign washes out the chats, making them almost unreadable. Yeah, I'm aware of that, but you can look at the chat itself and see it, so I don't really worry about it too much. I probably should just turn that screen chat off. Doesn't really matter. Boca Chica. Okay, so the timeline. If they arrived around 1000 AD or within a few hundred years of that, that's 500 years before the Spanish arrived. And 500 centuries is more than enough time for physical traits like the lighter skin, greater height, pronounced noses to spread through a population, while the Norse language and religion and even their material culture almost completely vanishes into the indigenous tribe version. The descendants wouldn't really be Vikings anymore, they'd be the Guane. Now, I want to show you this. I thought this was interesting. Looking at the height of what they were, they had an affinity to languages. They almost learned, according to the Spanish, almost instantaneously did they learn, and they used them as translators. In particular, there's one woman that they used, and so I'm going to key it off of that. but they use them for the different tribal languages in that area. They would use the Guane as interpreters because they just knew all of these different languages. They had a unique language skill, not seen anywhere else. So I asked AI to put together, based on the physical description of this Guanean woman, her height, her look, next to an typical indigenous woman at the time on the high end of the height spectrum and typical height of the Spanish. And this is what we got. This is based off the actual typical heights. She towered over the Spanish, and let alone the local indigenous. They ran around 5'8" to 5'10", and the Spanish were more like 5'6". As a matter of fact, most people 500 years ago were much shorter than we are today. But this woman, this translator, almost as tall as I am. So I thought that this was fascinating. Also, if you look at the characteristics, we know what indigenous people look like, and you look at the Guane, they're European. It's clearly a European look, more so than the Spanish. So it would be Northern European. So it's extremely possible that it was Viking. Now, there's no way to prove that. Nobody knows that, but it just kind of makes sense that you have this myth and you got this. Where did these people come from? You don't get blonde hair, blue-eyed, or light brown hair, tall, very white skin. And that was actually one of the descriptions. They didn't just say white skin, they said very white skin. You don't get that in the New World. It didn't exist anywhere else except this one little spot in Colombia near the Magdalena River. So anyway, there's detail in the records that's even more startling than their looks. Juan de Castellanos and Pedro Simon both noted that when Guane women entered Spanish service, their mastery of Castilian Spanish was almost instantaneous. Castellanos called it a thing of marvel. He said they spoke the conqueror's language as if it came to them by inheritance. Now, I don't know about you, but I've struggled with Spanish. The best I could tell, and when they say almost instantaneous, is they became fluent within a month or two. Fluent in a month or two. I absorbed Japanese like it was air. I had no trouble with Japanese, and I thought it was record time. It took me a year before I could be conversational without accent. It took me a year. It's taken me a decade with Spanish. And here, this woman, and it wasn't just her, but a month to a month and a half to be fluent. I mean, it just blows me away. Now, the Norse societies were intensely commercial, the Vikings, and they were successful traders because they survived by learning languages quickly. It was a trait of the Vikings. And they traded all the way from Ireland to Constantinople, all over Russia. And if a small Norse population had merged with the Guane centuries earlier, that cultural emphasis on linguistic dexterity and trade might have survived long after the original language was gone. Then you look at the engineering. The Guane were known to be master craftsmen. They built mountain roads out of paved stone, and they engineered terrace settlements on sheer cliffs that are still structurally sound today. Not the buildings, but the platforms that they built. Their textiles were so fine that European observers compared them to the linens of Flanders. In other words, extremely fine linens. And nothing about that is uniquely Norse, but it's entirely consistent with a society that values practical engineering and complex trade. That linen is famous today because nowhere else is the quality of that linen ever been duplicated by indigenous people. I don't mean there's not machines somewhere or something. Now, the Guane also practiced a bizarre form of cranial deformation, using wooden boards to elongate their skull into a feline jaguar-like contour. This is based off of, best I can tell, one skull that was found that was like that. Now, I don't know. I couldn't find anything where the Spanish really talked about it. I think they mentioned it once. So I don't know, but I'm throwing it in there because there's not a lot known, and this is something that is generally believed to be true. So it's almost if they're trying to balance their different physical appearance with some powerful symbolic indigenous identity. Now, one of the things that's very fascinating is how they disappeared. Unlike other groups that left deep linguistic footprints, the Guane vanished like smoke. They assimilated into the Spanish bloodline extraordinarily fast. If they were already a mixed ancestry from an earlier migration, maybe they were just predisposed to mix again. It just seemed to be their way. Now, their uniqueness didn't die, but it kind of dissolved into Santander. Currently, there's about 800 people that claim Guane to be their ancestors. There's about 400 women, there's about 400 men. No one knows for sure. They look completely indigenous. No one carries the traits that we're talking about. However, what lends it credence is there's a certain type of pottery that the Guane made and this linen. And they create something very similar. There is one woman who claims that she's inherited. She might not even be alive now. When I was in Bucaramanga 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't know, it's quite a while ago. I read about her, and she was a grandmother then, and really getting up there. She still made a pottery like the Guane did, and it's a particular skill. It's unlike other pottery, and she had the ability. And they said that when she dies, that will be a lost art because no one followed behind her to learn that. So this 800, I mean, I don't know if they're part of them or not. And I don't know that there's been a strong DNA study. Of course, that's one of the first things I tried to find. And I couldn't find any record of a legitimate DNA study with these 800 people that claim. Now, if anybody knows of that, let me know. I would love to know. Now, the Spanish had no concept of Viking exploration. And they had no reason to invent unusually light skin or rapid language acquisition. They had no reason to write that down. They just wrote down what they saw, and they had a history of being extremely factual and accurate. Not just there, but everywhere they went. That was one of the traits of the Spanish. Today we have information they didn't. We know that Europeans were in the New World long before Columbus. Now, it doesn't change the evidence the Spanish left behind, but it changes the list of possibilities. And it makes you wonder as you're walking those stone paths, Chicamocha Canyon. It makes you wonder about who those people were and where they came from. It fascinates me. This is a European woman. Now, this isn't an actual photograph, but it's true to the description of the Spanish. The eyes, the hair, the skin complexion. This is what they described. So, what do you think? I don't know. Do you find it boring? Do you find it non-interesting? I just find Colombia's history. There's so many things that are so unique and fascinating to me. Um, so here we are. Here we are. Um, Japanese pronunciation is very consistent. Yes, that's what makes it easy. It's like mathematics. It doesn't change. The Japanese that I spoke was a Japanese spoken 200 years before. Where English and Spanish is a living language, and what words that they use this year might be different next year. It's not the way it is in Japan. Things are very consistent. And they have room for new words, like they'll have American words, but it uses a different alphabet. It's kind of in its own category. But they apply their pronunciation, like McDonald's is McDonald's. It's a mouthful. So you end up relying more on ear and feel than on clear rules. Yeah, Spanish. I saw in one of the Facebook pages as I was searching something else, I saw this woman complaining. She says that she's fluent in Mexican Spanish. But here she is in Medellin and she can't understand what they're saying. Now, I don't get the degree of what she's saying. There are differences. When I came from Ecuador to Medellin, there was an adjustment. The basic words I understood, it was more the pace of it that made different pronunciations, or they use different words here. Here in Colombia, they love double entendre. They love hidden sexual meanings to things. It's a humorous language. And Ecuador wasn't like that at all. It was very straight laced. It was very rigid, and they had their way of doing things. And in a lot of ways, a lot clearer, at least in the Andes. On the coast, different, but in the Andes. You come to Colombia, and you got a bunch of new words to try to understand. The same word that they'll use in Ecuador here can have an opposite meaning. It's this drive they have to make humor out of things. So I get that, but to just not understand at all, that kind of blew me away. I don't get it because my Spanish sucks. And I never ran into that to that extreme. It's like I may have to get somebody to slow down and maybe clarify a word now and then. But even with my bad Spanish, I got it. And Paisa is less about, I think it's less about the words and more about the way they deliver it. I mean, Paisa is just whining. If all you're going to say is, they have this cadence to it that sounds like they're whining all the time. I always had trouble with Mexican because they just blend their words together. And so they use the same words, but you don't know where one word ends and another one leaves off, and the entire sentence sounds like one word. So I always had trouble with that, but you pick up things, you get them to slow down. So I didn't understand where she was coming from on this, but Spanish is difficult. Spanish to me is the most difficult I ever ran into. Not that there's been tons of different languages, but I traveled in different countries in Europe, and I don't know. Gwen Krav, good morning from Vancouver. Sorry I'm late. That's okay. We're not going to take it out on you. Chica Mocha. Is it Chica Mocha? Chica Mocha, I think it is. Okay. So Mike couldn't come in. I'm going to see if I can figure out whatever's going on and see if I can get him next week. Anybody, I ask all the time, and few people respond. I'm seriously asking you now, for the sake of this channel, because if the exchange rate doesn't go up soon, and the fact that I'm probably not going to be monetized for the at least the next foreseeable few months, I will probably have to stop doing this channel. But you can help me try to keep this together. If you send me, if you're interested, what topics you'd be interested in times other than Sundays 11 a.m. Coffee Time Live. If I could get a dozen people to watch a couple times during the week for various topics, I could probably jump some of these hurdles. Also, if you would be willing to do the likes and the shares, particularly sharing, because what I have to do is stop focusing just on you guys, which is what I always focus everything I do for you, for the audience, particularly most of you that have been with me forever. But if I'm going to keep this thing going, I really need to expand it somewhat. Now, I don't want to expand outside of Colombia. Maybe on my personal channel, I could do some things there, but it needs to be Colombia. It's a Colombia channel. But what would be interesting to a broader audience beyond just Armenia, Colombia? Or do you think I should do that at all? I mean, what do you think about this situation? I would love the input. I would love the feedback. And in case you don't know, there's my email. Okay. We've run the course. I will give last call here. Turn that off. I did get a couple contributions recently. I want to thank you for that. I'm getting closer to my goal of the penile implant, and so I'm very excited about that. Okay, that was my last call. Attendance a little light today. I'm thinking maybe these history topics aren't very interesting. I just don't get the feedback. I don't know what to do to get the feedback. I got to quit begging for it, though. Yeah. All right. We're going to end it here. Thank you for being here. I hope I can keep this going. I'd miss you guys. And besides, what else am I going to do? All right. I will see you later. I will see you maybe during the week when I do some other topic. And I'll see you next coffee time. It's summer here and people do a lot of things outdoors. That's not really it, because there are times when they're not outdoors. Plus, it hasn't really changed from January. So I get what you're saying, but it's the same. Coffee Time Live is always interesting. Thank you. But apparently not enough. I don't know how to get a spread on it. I don't know. I know that there's people that would find it interesting, but they don't know it even exists. And that's why sharing would be important, because that's about the only way for it to happen. It didn't happen on YouTube. People say, well, you should have stayed with YouTube. It wasn't happening. I didn't grow. Over the course of 5 years, I picked up 400 subscribers until they put that algorithmic change on me, essentially blocking people and desubscribing. Until then, I was growing really strong. I was growing 100, 200 people a month, which, considering the time frame where that was occurring, the first 3 years of that channel, and the first year I barely did anything. So over a 2-year time span to get to that kind of pace, I mean, I went from 1,000 to 4,000 in under 2 years. I mean, that's tremendous. And then from the next 5 years, I would get a lot of subscribers, but at the same time, I would get people deleted. Not that I deleted, but YouTube was deleting them. So every time I get two, they would delete one or two. It just kept happening like that. I mean, currently, right now, after 10 years, I think, on YouTube, I think I've got a total of 4,500 subscribers. I had that 5 or 6 years ago. So going to YouTube isn't an answer. It doesn't work. I do simulcast over there, but it's more for an inner project I'm working on that's not going to be forever. And people that watch on YouTube don't help me at all. It's not helping me build this channel where I need to be. Maybe change up with some lives on location. Well, shorts on TikTok, Instagram. Yeah, I've actually done a lot of shorts. I've done maybe 300-400 shorts this year. But the on location thing, I've been stuck here. So I've got a studio, so I use a studio. I haven't been able to get out. I mentioned a week or two ago, I don't really want to talk about specifics, and I'm trying to stay away from my health thing. But the truth of it is I've been kind of trapped here. Tomorrow I am getting out. It's only 2 doors down, so I should be okay. But I'm meeting up with a couple friends, a man and woman married, very nice people. And I'm meeting up with them for a coffee, just 2 doors down from me. And so I'm really excited about that. But you don't know how bad I would love to roll back the time when I could go out and just walk the streets. I mean, I miss it. You have no idea how bad I miss it. But I can't do it right now. And the other thing is, it doesn't matter, because if people don't know the channel exists, I don't have, but I could have the best content in the world. I could have the most fascinating topic, but if they don't hear of it, it doesn't do anything. And that's the problem. That's where I am right now. The people that come to the channel and watch are the people that have known about this channel for a long time, with very few exceptions. And they continue to come. It hasn't really dropped off. That's been good. It's been strong. That's why I'm blessed that you guys keep coming around. However, no new people are coming because no new people know about the channel. And the only way to do that is if everybody that watches, if you find something interesting, share it, post it up on your Facebook timeline or whatever it is. The more you can do that, the more it will spread and it will solve this issue. Lean into your past travel and Colombia experiences. Well, I kind of do that. I'm a wealth of knowledge, because this isn't just to brag and blow my own horn, but to be realistic. I know I have a lot of Colombian friends, as you know, because I talk about them. I have them on the channel sometimes. And whenever I talk about particular topics, I know more from the research than they do or have even heard of certain things, with few exceptions. Now, I didn't know how bad Cauca was until Sharik filled me in. And her mother sent me video clips and photos every day for about a month of things that were going on there. And things were happening every day. And it was gruesome. They're sending me pictures of bodies riddled with bullet holes. They're sending people blown up by bombs, because this is what their world was. And they're walking around this and they're seeing it enough to take photos of it. And every day for about a month. Finally, I said, quit sending them to me. I get the picture. I've been through my wars. I don't need to see any more of that. I get it. And so I shut it down, because how much do you need to see? But there's so much of it that goes on there that they were able to do that. And none of them were the same. So I learned a lot, but now I know. And so, and I've traveled a lot of Colombia. I've been to Medellin, I've been to Cartagena, I've been to Bucaramanga and Bogota a bunch of times, some of these. I've been all over the south part of Colombia, Cali. I mean, so my travel experience is pretty broad. And usually when I would go to a place, I would spend a minimum of a day, sometimes a week or two. So I've got pretty good knowledge, but whenever I would do a video, and you long-term viewers know this, if I was going to talk about a particular topic, I don't just say what I observed on my 3 days in a place, because I know that's not going to be valid. Or at least if that's what I do, I say, I'm seeing this, I don't really know. I always characterize it properly. But what I would do is ask people that do know, ask people that live there. I would research any particular topic. So when I come to you with information, I'm pretty confident that I'm giving you true and accurate information. And when my channel was able to grow, because your growth on YouTube is a thing unless they don't want you to. And I was exploding. And it was purely because the information was dead on accurate. And even when I was in Ecuador and I had gringos complaining because they didn't like things that I was saying, but I would have Ecuadorians defend me and say, he's saying exactly what it is. That is how it is. And it's because I got information from them. So I research, I try to verify, I try to talk to people. And that's always been the strength of the channel. I don't sit here and, blow butterflies up your dress. I try to tell you what's real, how things are, the best I can. And I'm sure I make mistakes. My biggest mistakes are if I misspeak on something, and that happens sometimes. And if you've ever had to sit and talk mostly off the top of your head about something, a word will come out of your mouth so you didn't even realize you said that particular word that alters what you were trying to say. And then you watch it back and go, oh, damn, I didn't mean to say that. Well, that'll happen occasionally, but that's, none of us, as far as I know, are robots, and, we make those mistakes. But I'm pretty good about it. And so there's the strength of the channel. The strength of the channel, as far as I'm concerned, is that I research information. I give you the best accurate information I possibly can give you. If it's biased, I make it obvious that it's biased. When I talk about Petro, it was clearly biased, but I acknowledge that, but it wasn't biased for the sake of it. It was biased based on particular things happening, which exposed later. You look now, he's brought up on charges in the U.S., but more than that, he's got a bunch of charges pending here in Colombia for illegal activities he was involved in. You look at the end result of what's happened with the FARC and the ELN and all that, exploding in growth and in wealth. You look at the debt that has been incurred in Colombia. Historically, it's never been like this that I'm aware of. So you look at those things, it was a disaster. And so I saw it then, many of you did, and sure enough, here we are. And so, it's an issue, and it affects expats too. So it wasn't just, I hate socialism and Petro. Well, I do, but it's for the reasons to not have those things happen, because that's what always happens. And it was happening. See, if people have, blind allegiance to certain ideologies, and that's fine, you can do that. But just like you can have an opinion, I can have one. But for the most part, I kept it to myself, except in things that were pretty blatantly important, in particular to expats. How can I not talk about certain things that, it's going to affect us? So, all right, I'm wandering on and on. Yeah, bring her to them back on, cute. Who, which one? Which one? I've had many cute girls. And you say, why is it always girls? Well, I have a few male friends, but I have a lot of female friends. And as much as you want to think that it's pervy, it really isn't. I just relate better, because Colombian men tend to have this macho thing about them, and it's very competitive. And so if you're trying to have a conversation about something where it really, if you're going to learn, if I'm going to learn and it needs a certain give or take, it tends to get in the way. And where we can be friends in general, it's not one of these, I don't cultivate them because mostly for that situation. With females, I always have good, well, I shouldn't say always, almost always have good give and take conversations. If I have an opinion, they'll give an opinion back. They'll set me straight. It's Colombian women are kind of like that. They're not really pushover, but it's easy to have conversation with Colombian women for me. And with Colombian men, it's not that we can't have conversations. It's just that we get this, I don't know, it's not really a defensiveness, but there's just something that kind of gets in the way. And if you're hunting for him, if you're making friends, it doesn't really matter. But if you're cultivating, like I have intentionally done, to be an information source, it's difficult. Now, there's a few, like the birding guy, awesome guy, no problem whatsoever with that conversation. We've had hours of conversation, and I've had him on the channel. I did a half an hour interview with him. He's a fascinating guy. Javier, I've been friends with him 20 years. Fantastic guy. I don't know. Yeah, he's been on the channel a couple times, but he was a good source of information. So there's been a few, and they've been on the channel, but for the most part, it's just so much easier for me to get information. Also, guys don't want to be on the channel where women love to get in front of the camera, at least more than men. So there's that too. Consequently, I know dozens of females and 2 or 3 guys as far as, being part of a channel. Now, over this last year, as I've been struggling with my illness and stuff, it's amazing how many people that I've known that have left Armenia are living elsewhere. Some of the people that I would see almost on a daily basis, they're long gone. They're just not around anymore. I mean, we'll talk on WhatsApp or something now and then, but not that much. They're living a different life, and I'm here, they're there, and so you kind of, even Sharik. I mean, we barely communicate once a week, and she used to write to me like constantly, and drop by unannounced. I had to break her of that habit, but she just, I'm here. And she had the guards downstairs convinced that I didn't need to be warned. Pretty funny. But she got a new job, and she's traveling all over the place. Currently, she's in Cartagena, but she spent some weeks in Bogota. Her home base is in Cali. She's just like all over Colombia, and so extremely busy. So, so a lot. People change. Life moves on. And if I were to replenish the people that move out, which is what I always did in the past, I mean, this isn't something new, but because I was always out and about and doing things and meeting new people, there was always new people. And you've seen that in the channel if you've been watching for a number of years. You'll see somebody will be here involved or in my videos walking around or something, maybe for a year or so, and then, they move off or whatever. It's just how life goes. And now I'm not out there, creating new people. And so it becomes shrinking. Macho is well ingrained, unfortunately, very, very much so. People say it's not like that, but it's not like it used to be, but it's every bit as it's still there. It's there in a big way. Particularly the younger the guys are, the more it exists. I mean, it's less than it used to be, but they have a serious problem here with guys hooking up with a girl and another girl and another girl, getting them knocked up and then leaving them. That's a common theme here. And you're seeing less of that, but you're not seeing less of it because of the guys. You're seeing less of it because the women have caught on to it. And I know so many that just will not have a boyfriend until they get to a certain point in their life because they don't want their life to be derailed by ending up with a baby that they're not ready for, and being heartbroken by somebody who is lying to her and using her. And they want to believe, but they just see too much of that happen. And in some cases, they'll have it happen and then just kind of, it's like, I'm just not going to have a boyfriend until I'm 30 or something like that. So, sweet talker. Who's a sweet talker? You should have the birding guy on again. He's fantastic. He is. I haven't talked to him in a while, and I haven't talked to his now wife in quite a while. I talked to her last. They were living down the road from me, but they've moved. But he's never around. He was never around. He would be out. We'll call it the bush. He would be out where there's no cell signal, because he goes to parts of Colombia that he's walked many parts of Colombia that probably have never seen feet before. And so he's always out. It's how he makes his money. He does photographs for National Geographic and other magazines. And, plus he does these. They're very expensive, but if you're really into the depth of that kind of safari, he's the guy to call. So you'll be staying at first class settings, and there'll be air flights. He doesn't go cheap, but he's the only one I know of that does exactly what he does. And so he's just not available anymore. I've tried. I'll leave him a message. I'll hear from him 2 or 3 weeks later. Yeah, I just got back into town, but I'm headed out tomorrow. Okay. Well, what do you want? The guy's, 30, 32 years. This is his building and earning time. Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. He's so good at what he does. He actually got a grant from the Colombian government he would go to farms and teach them agricultural methods of how it was done 200 years ago. And he got a grant to do that, because he knows everything there is about plants and animals in Colombia. I mean, that's one of his main expertise. He doesn't just go take pictures of everything. He knows all about them. And his education is in the same. And so he knows if you plant this, it will prevent bugs that would attack this. So he knows all of that sort of thing. Woo! Boy, that was a run. Sorry about that. More of my honey tea. Oh, before I go, I wanted to ask you, I mentioned a few weeks ago about this honey that I put in here. And I look at the ingredients on it, and all it says is it's bee honey. But it was cheap. So granted, it was like $1 or $2 for a bottle. I bought it because it was cheap. And it tastes like honey. It doesn't taste like good honey, but it's got the basic taste of honey. But it pours out with a viscosity of water. And I'm not exaggerating. I probably should have brought it and shown you. I've never seen anything like it. I expected to look at the ingredients and say bee honey and water, or water and bee honey, because it tastes, you can almost guess that it's watered down, but the viscosity, I've never seen honey with the viscosity of water. So what's my question? My question is, have you ever seen honey that's as thick as water or as thin as water? I've never seen it. And it's concerning because it's a Colombian product within Colombia, and they're very good about labeling, but labeling everywhere, including the United States, sometimes they might cheat around it. And if they say water, well, it's inert. We don't really have to put that in. So we could throw a little water in there, water it down, and who's going to know? I don't know. Love hearing you over Chat GPT anytime. You mean talking about it? Chat GPT right now is trash. Since they went to 5.5, it is absolute trash. It's only good for creating pictures. Those pictures I put up today, I like those a lot. I think it did a great job. That picture is great. And I love that I didn't even ask it for the description, but it verified what it was putting up. And the height one, I told it what I wanted, but it did a great job. This, you would think the middle one was typical indigenous woman. And the Spanish, that's actually tall for what typical Spanish are. I mean, so it's great with photos. It totally sucks with any kind of, I don't know. It's so with research. You have to really work hard to get it to research properly. It's really good with photos, but beyond that, it's just pointless anymore. They changed it up. I thought maybe I'm crazy. So I went to Gemini and I said, do a search and see if there's been any documentation about changes to GPT because of, and I named some specifics. And it came back and said, yeah, when it went to 5.5, it rewrote, and so it no longer will do this, or this. It's, what the hell? You want to see improved abilities, not regressive abilities. It's worse than it was 3 years ago. Love hearing you spontaneously and on a roll. Go. I don't know. Well, I didn't lose anybody while I went off the deep end. But that's what chat does. I'm asking for live chats all the time, right? Well, I got the stuff that I prepared. I got my photos. I got the headlines. I've already researched this stuff. I got my main topic. I have my notes right here, right in front of me. So I'm good to go with that stuff. But that's all almost formalized. I've got something I need to do, so I'm trapped in that lane. But when you ask me a question, it comes out of nowhere. I'm willing to answer pretty much anything. And so I go off on a tangent. And a lot of people like that I do that. I personally like it because I get to say things that you don't say when you're canned. But sometimes you say things you wish you hadn't said. That's just an issue with me. I have that problem. If you ask me, I'm going to answer it. And I'm not as careful all the time as I should be. And when you talk to me in person, I'm even more that way. I don't know why it is. I just feel compelled to answer. All right. So no more questions, no more comments. I appreciate everybody that's here. I'm more than appreciate it. I'm not a very sentimental guy, but if I were to sit here and talk about some detail, even some particular people, and about what's kept this channel going and why I do it and how I could actually start to get teary-eyed because it's deep. And I don't like to get that way, but all I could say is I appreciate you guys endlessly. I don't know what I would have done in particularly this past year. I tried to fill it up by going on a book writing spree. I kind of gassed out on that. There's only so much that comes out of my head. And it was a lot of unfinished things that I finished. And I produced books over it, five books. But it's this channel that keeps me going. I've got a day or two of researching topics, and I got a preparation, then I got the the day of the channel, and and now I've got midweek video. I mean, it's my hobby that keeps me going, because I am not, if I'm trapped in my apartment, I can either be on the computer doing something, or I could be watching TV, and I can't do that for very long. I try to keep it in the morning about an hour, depending on when I get up, and then at night after 9 o'clock. Particularly if I'm going to watch a movie, it'd be after 9 o'clock. The rest of the time, I try to be productive. And what do I have? I got a guitar, I got a computer, I've got writing, video, writing, and a guitar. But you guys are a big chunk of that. Anyway, now I'm pointlessly rambling. Cheers. See you later. See you next week. Please write. Let me know what's going on, and I will see you later. Ciao.
Oh.